Hello, welcome back to the Empowered
Yeah.
Earth podcast. Today we have a very special guest. We have Lara Thomas on. She is a medium. Welcome, Laura.
You. Thanks so much.
Welcome.
I'm so
We're so
excited to be
excited.
here.
So today is June 4th when we are recording this. This is going to be out in couple weeks, but let's just talk about the energies at play right now. I know this is like kind of delayed for anybody listening. This be like, I wish I knew about this earlier, but like, holy moly,
Yeah.
energy right now. To anybody sensitive out there, and if you're listening to this podcast, you are probably sensitive, so this will apply to you. Um, I'm a sentient being, so I feel everything that prior to like the collective feeling it. So I don't, maybe the collective hasn't felt it yet fully.
Mhm.
There is like, we are extremely ungrounded. There's a lot of influx of energy. It feels like solar flares. I don't know if it is. I feel like
Yeah.
Krystle, it's like we are going through a purge,
Aries in that.
right?
I had a conversation with one of my spiritual mentors the other day. And, like, I agree with you. The energies have been a roller coaster. Um, and there has definitely been this dissonant frequency. And I, like, when I was digging into it the other day and just kind of like really diving into what it feels like, I don't know if it feels like this for you, Morgan, but for me, it feels like almost like, you know, how COVID was this manufactured strain of whatever.
Hmm.
It feels like a manufactured frequency because it just doesn't feel natural. If I think of like all the years where I felt difficult frequencies, they felt like within a range that my body could understand.
Hmm.
Whereas right now, this frequency feels foreign. Like when I say foreign, I'm not necessarily talking aliens or anything, but I am talking about just not familiar.
Hmm.
The frequency that's out there right now feels bizarre.
You know,
Hmm.
it's so funny you say this because the other day when I started to feel this, I went into the grocery store and the woman was like, "How's your day?" And I was like, "It's really weird." I said, "It's the energy outside is very eerie." So I started to
Yes.
feel this on Sunday. It was as though, and she said, like pre-COVID. And I was like, it's funny you say that. It was, she's like, she's like, it feel, I was like, yeah, like, it's like, you know, when you pull back the slingshot, but it's like, it's eerie. It's like abnormally quiet and high strung. And it's not sitting in my body well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I agree with you. Like it's not sitting well at all. I hear you, and I'm someone who, I believe so strongly that we can create our reality and influence our reality through our thoughts and our mindset and our energies and our literal frequency and how we raise our own vibration. So I tend to, I look at the world as something that we can co-create, like in our experience, but I like this vibration thing is there. It's very
Hmm.
real. And I think for sensitive people who maybe haven't sat down and tuned into what exactly am I feeling here, it can just throw you off. And I think if people are not aware of the universal energies, it's easy to take it personally and be like,
Yeah.
is, am I
Yeah.
doing something? So
Am
I
I the
think it's so
problem?
important for us to know like what is us versus what is universal.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've seen it with a lot of my clients now that just even some of the couples that I work with. So let me backstep. I call myself a soul alignment coach now. And that is like it's a name I came up with myself, but because my mediumship coupled with like my background in psychology, my passion for energetics and just the mind and the mind body soul connection, really my passion is helping use my gifts to get people in alignment with their soul, with their purpose, with their values.
Okay, hold on. What is
Right.
your astrology?
Yeah. So I don't go into astrology with my clients specifically.
But what is yours?
Oh, I'm a Cancerian with a Gemini rising and a Virgo moon.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so part of my journey with my clients is sometimes helping couples and just recognizing the soul work with that is revealed in the relationship. And it's so interesting when you see these universal energies at play. For me, what's so interesting is I'll have all the couples reach out to me at the same time, like they're all having conflict at the same
Yeah.
time. And then they're suddenly all okay at the same time. And I'm like, I wish they could see the trends like I see the trends, because you can't see it when it's just your relationship, right? And it's been a strong influence. Like this year has been so, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a 9 year. And a nine in numerology can, it's got a scope of healing and closure, endings. So I like to think of it as wrapping your gift in a bow. It's like bringing things to a full completion. But what I'm seeing at play with people is it's almost like the universe is going, you haven't let go of the things you're needing to let go of. You
Right.
haven't made the changes that you're needing to make. And now it's pushing really hard.
Yeah.
You know how that there's that saying, like the universe throws a stone and then it throws a brick and then it throws a wall and then it throws a
Yeah.
house. It feels like the house this year.
Yeah.
And so why I wanted to mention it is I think it's so empowering to just be aware of that and go, maybe there's something I'm holding on to, whether it's a habit or someone I need to forgive or relationships that are toxic or, just not working. Maybe it's a friendship where you're just in a different vibe and we're needing to calibrate our energies and be mindful of what we're bringing into our space, because it does play a role and it matters. Like universally, right, for each and every one of us, if each of us step up 2 degrees, what is the universal impact?
Yeah.
Yeah. So true.
Right? Like, and I think that it's so easy to, our human self, our human brain wants to keep things the same
Yeah.
and doesn't like change. And
Yeah.
so we're apprehensive to make these changes. But we really, like on a spiritual level, are being asked, are we living from love or fear?
Yeah.
And we're needing to align our decision making with
Yep.
love, right?
Well,
What
yeah,
would I
because
love?
sorry, I was just gonna say if we're not making the decision, that's where the house comes in.
Yes, yes,
A- And it's like forcing us forward into the soul evolution.
yes.
Yeah.
It's Eckhart Tolle. He says that every experience that we have is the universe's way of trying to reveal to us what will raise our consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And and so if we can see the opportunity in the difficulty, instead of just looking at it as like this is happening to me and it's bad or like shouldn't be happening this way and resisting it, if we could lean in and be like, this is my opportunity for growth right now.
Yeah.
This is the area I'm needing to take stock. And it is always easier said than done. And I think that sometimes we need a friend or a family member or a coach to help us see those things because we're too zoomed in to see it for ourselves,
Yeah. Absolutely.
you know?
I'll
Yeah.
share personally, and I can speak for Krystle as well. It's just been like we have both been on what we believe to be the higher path
Yeah.
constantly, right? And
Yes.
so then for more change to consistently be happening, like it's exhausting. Like
Yeah.
I just would like to have,
1 month.
yeah, of like, I want to enjoy the fruits of my labor instead of new seed, new seed, new seed, like death, rebirth. It's like the death and rebirth that I've experienced. I'm like, I don't have it in me anymore. You know,
Yeah.
like,
I so get that. Like there I've definitely felt more need for that rest recuperation
Mhm.
than usual, especially in the last few months. Um, and I think it's okay to listen. It's okay to listen to your system and try and create those pockets of peace and those
Mm.
pockets of rest and recovery wherever you can. Like that is okay.
It's
So
so
I think,
true. It's so true. Oh, sorry, I keep interrupting you. I don't
no,
mean to.
okay.
It's so true. And then we fight ourselves on it because we're like, we can't just lay around and
Right.
you, right? Because there's like the pressure of life. And so it's like, where is the balance between not fighting what I need, but also giving myself what I need?
And I think that that's the learning
Yeah.
is actually we've been in a culture of hustle. We've been in a culture of if you're not doing, then you're not influencing or affecting the universe positively. Um,
Hmm.
but the truth is we're human beings, not human doings. And I think that learning to balance out your doing and separate that from your sense of self-worth.
Right.
So I am
Yep.
enough. I'm not needing to do this to prove anything or for anybody else. And so, primarily, yes, I have to take care of this vessel that carries me. And as I do that, I'm able to be in the highest vibration. So, when I'm in action, I'm the most effective.
Mhm.
Right. But
Yeah.
I get it. I think our culture doesn't, and it's universally so. Like we just feel this need to be going all the time. And so it's that mindful and conscious stop, like where am I at, right? And just checking in with ourselves and giving ourselves permission to take care of the body that ultimately is human in nature. And I often, this has been a real time challenge for me, is that my spirit is like, let's go, let's do all the things
Mhm.
because I'm excited and I want to do these things and I want to make the change, in the world. But my body is like, hey, I also need to sleep and, I also need rest. And I think it's okay to be in the process of learning what our limits are. And that constant calibration, I think, is what we're being asked to do. And so
Yeah.
I think the fact that you're aware is is key because you're doing the work, right?
Well,
Especially right now.
yeah. Well, this
Yeah.
morning I'm like, I have to go just lay in the grass and be under the sun and just,
Yes.
but getting myself out the door to do that, I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, I would rather be doing something productive, like that. And then I got out there and I'm like, this is wonderful.
Yeah.
Like this reminds me of being my dog's running around with my shoe in her mouth, being goofy, and I'm like, this, and it just set my day up for joy, you know? And so I'm like, okay. And then I was like, I wonder if the universe is making me feel like garbage so that I go outside and lay in the grass. And
Slow down.
I'm like, okay, noted.
Absolutely. That's it. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Dr. Beckwith, Michael Beckwith. He's
Mhm.
he's amazing, and he had an interview with Oprah, and he said the pain pushes until the vision pulls.
Oh,
And
Mm.
I love that because I see it with myself as well. Like I'm pretty stubborn sometimes, and I get so distracted with life, right? Because I
Mhm.
often say our eyes are pointed outwards. So whatever's in front of us that needs to get done seems to be more pressing than what's within us because we're not visually seeing ourselves and what we need. Um, but I notice with myself that me too, like I've got to get into the garden and hear the birds and just be disconnected from technology and
Mhm.
from that chaos. But yet we resist it. Like I know for myself, it's like, what am I know that when I'm out there, I'm going to feel better.
yeah,
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
sometimes almost have to just like you did, you go, we're going,
we're
right?
going.
That higher part of yourself is like, we're going outside now. Let's go.
If
Off we
we
go.
can
And
take note of it and be like, wow, I feel so much better after, like, why can't I remember that part?
yeah,
Instead of being like, oh, I don't have time for this. I don't feel like it's important.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Silly.
it
Every time
is.
Crystal's like, "Have you grounded today?" And she's like, "Because you were like, I resist." And I'm like, why would I resist doing something that is makes me feel good? It
So
Doesn't
here's an
make sense.
answer. Here's an
Yeah.
answer that is interesting, is that we've all got our upper limits. Like, so we've all got a comfort zone. So
Mhm.
let's create a like a circle in our minds.
Reading this book right now.
As you are growing and evolving, you reach the limits of what is comfortable naturally for you. And I think what happens is your spirit knows that if you continue to improve and grow and be on this higher vibration, the change is coming. And
Right.
so the brain tries to bring you back into that comfort zone. And so you resist the things that are going to actually help you break through.
So
And
true.
and that's, that's recognizing that your brain is wired to survive. It's not actually wired for fulfillment or joy,
Mm.
right? And this is part of what I love about what I do is understanding the brain and its limitations and its glitches, and then having that ability as a soul to choose differently and go, okay, my biology is going to tell me this, but I'm going to choose this because I know what's good for me.
Yeah.
And that, why do I not remember to do this? One of the things that I do if I have a moment like that is I actually go into my calendar on my phone and I put that go outside in my calendar.
Right.
Because then you can't, then it's a reminder, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
I think we almost have to do that for ourselves to just keep our balance, especially now.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so true.
Laura, you're very grounding, and it's very like I could just listen to you talk all day. Very beautiful energy about you. I just wanted to share
Thank
that.
you.
You're welcome. So can you share like how did this path unfold? Like you are extremely wise. I would love to know do you know what your human design is?
No, I
Gotcha.
tried to do my human design, but my mom is not sure of my time of birth.
Uh,
Right.
that's okay.
So
You can still do it, but
Yeah.
um, yeah,
yeah, you know what? Maybe you can look into that for me.
yes.
Um, but it's interesting because my sister-in-law is so passionate about that, but I feel like I've done so much like research into all the different personality assessments and archetypes and blah, blah, blah. And I feel pretty aware of my strengths and weaknesses and all of that stuff. Um, but I have to. So my story is reasonably fascinating, I think, because I started my career as a singer. I was a
Mhm.
professional
Wow.
performer in South Africa, and within a year of doing that, I started coaching as well at the college that I studied music. So I left school, studied music, went overseas to sing, came back, studied like my teachers in singing in the method I was doing, and then started teaching at that college and was performing around the country. And basically, I did that for many, many years. And in that time, my passion for helping my students, they were young adults, to overcome their fears, to face that not enoughness within each of them, led me to studying psychology. And I did that while I was teaching. So I was personally on a spiritual journey always, learning whatever I could, whether it was Reiki or about chakras or energy work and psychology. And I was using these things with my students. And it got to the point where I was able to like know what was happening in their bodies. I could tell emotionally what was happening because I could see where their energies were off and how their chakras were linked with their voices. And it was a cool process. Um,
Hold on, let me just
what
ask you
happened?
a question. Can you see, like, does your third eye turn on with your two eyes? Like, could you see as you're looking at them? Or how did you drop into that?
It's more for me, it's like how I explain it is almost if you think of playing a memory in your head of what you did last Christmas and you're playing that, that's how I see it.
Yeah.
So it's playing like a memory in my mind.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Sometimes if I'm scanning someone's body, it's like a sensory scan. I can feel the density of the energy, rather than a specific color, for example. So So what happened was, I think, the universe knew that because I'd been brought up in a very religious home, and that mediumship was like, if the universe had tried to reveal that to me earlier, I don't think I would have been open to it. I would have run a million miles. So it was preparing me, and all these things in the background were like me rehearsing this without even knowing. Because I'd read my students, like on the first day of college, I'd be like, I think this is going to be your greatest challenge, and this is what you're needing to learn and tackle, and blah, blah, blah. And they were like, ooh, cool party trick. But I didn't realize that that was anything particularly special because I've always been me, right? So I just
Right.
thought that was normal. And then my therapist at the time one day was like, just feel, because she knew I was deeply spiritual, she said, I just feel guided to tell you, you need to go to this animal communication course this weekend. And I was like, huh? I had a dog who was like my soulmate at the time, and I loved her so deeply. And I thought anything to communicate even more deeply with her, I'm in. So I didn't research it. I didn't have time to. I had such a busy week and rocked up, and it was Amelia Kincaid who'd come out from America. And I thought, I don't know really exactly what I thought. Again, I hadn't researched it, but I thought it was going to be like physical communication with my animal, right? Like I say, my animal, she was really my person, but you know what I mean. And what happened was she taught us how to tune in, how to quiet the noise. And she explained it like tuning into a radio frequency. And so we did a meditation, we did all these, we basically learned, we sat with and read a variety of animals from guinea pigs to ligavans to horses to everything. And by the end of the weekend, I was like, I don't know how this is happening, but I was able to see where the guinea pig lived and get messages from the horses. And I was just, I think, as in shock as everybody else was, because everybody was looking at me a bit funny by the end of the weekend because I was the only one getting stuff. But what happened? So weekend was done, and I left thinking, that's so cool, but I'm probably never going to use this because I'm
Mhm.
not going to walk up to people and start reading their animals in the streets. So when am I going to use this? And what happened was that Tuesday, my students were on their study break, and two of the students had come in for me to just go through some of the things that they were struggling with. So I was sitting at my keyboard and I was playing their warm up sequence. And the one student's father came through to me like very strongly. Bearing in mind, I am not looking for it. I am not meditating.
Right.
I'm playing the piano. I'm looking at my students. And I was like, is it even legal for me to tell him this? Like, I don't know. So I was pushing back, but he wasn't leaving me alone. And eventually, when I just allowed it to flow, it was like, it was such detailed information. I was like, your dad's pointing to the number of the song, number 18. Like, why is this so important? And he's like, well, he was born on the 18th and he died on the 18th. I was like, whoa. You know what? I put my phone on silent, but let me just put it in the drawer. Um, he he was looking at me like gobsmacked, like what is going on? And then I was like,
Mhm.
and he wants you to know that the legacy is now yours. And then he just started sobbing. He's like, I just did his funeral speech last week, and the whole point of the speech was the legacy he's left behind. And
It's
I mean, I
amazing.
think I was in shock, he was in shock, and it carried on for about, I'm going to say 30 minutes of just flow. And then the lights turned off in the room,
Oh my God.
which was like bizarre. So the layout of the room was I was on a stage with the keyboard so I could see all the students. So I could see the door at the back and there was no one there. So no one was able to touch that switch. Anyway, the other student whose father I was not connecting with was like, okay, I'm freaked out. Can we have a break, please? I was like, okay, let's have a break. And I think we were all like, what just happened? And when we came back to the classroom, he said to me, Lara, I know you didn't know this, but before you got to college today, I was sitting in the room in L26, which was like a little room. And I was missing my dad and I was crying. And I just said, Dad, if you love me at all, you need to let me know that you're around.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Right? I
Yeah.
had no idea. And and so honestly, I left that day kind of going, what just happened? What does this mean? And more than anything, I like to consider myself a really logical person. And I've always been someone who advocates for like being in control and in power within yourself. So I left there going like, oh no, like I don't want to be a crazy person. Like in those days, I was like, what is this going to mean for my life? Right.
Mhm.
And I remember crying with my husband back then, um, and just being like, I don't know what this means. And he was like, I feel like if you've been given this gift, you know, you're meant to use it and you're meant to
Yeah.
help people with it. So I was like, yeah, good point. Okay, right. And and so I think I just surrendered into it. And honestly, it was as if the floodgates just opened up. And I think it's because I had been channeling without knowing it for so long.
Right.
You know, when I was lecturing like performance on a Tuesday, because other people from the college could come and watch their friends perform, and my lecture room was like always full, 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 like into the passage because people wanted to come and hear me. And it I didn't realize at the time. Now I realize, oh, I used to get this feeling like this tingle throughout my
Hmm.
body, and it would just flow out of my mouth, and it really wasn't anything that I had prepared. And that was happening all the time, right? But again, it's so easy to logically say, well, you know, I'm just a good lecturer because I've been doing this for so long, or I'm just really passionate about it, or whatever you know, reasons we come up with. But I think the universe just had me practicing. And, you know, my solo sessions with my students, I was reading them without even realizing that that was something the average person doesn't do.
Right.
Um,
That's incredible.
it's a bizarre turn of events. And then I ended up channeling my therapist's mother. I was at the gym on the treadmill. So again, was not looking for it. And I was certainly not trying to connect with my therapist's mother. Like this is just it didn't like I didn't know anything about her personal life because she was my therapist. And when I shared everything with her, she was like, feel like this is going to change our relationship. So she shifted from being my therapist to being my spiritual mentor, which she'd kind of been already. But she was like, I don't think I've ever met anyone where it's just opened up to such an extreme extent so quickly.
Hmm.
And then she started referring people to me. So within like 3 months of me realizing I had this gift, I had left both my teaching jobs that I'd been with for like 14 years, which is pretty nuts.
Yep.
Talk about an ego death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I can say that when I immigrated, which was so I realized my gift and then leaned into that. And it was probably no, it was actually only a year. So backpedal. In that time, me and my husband had been trying to fall pregnant for a long time. And we had applied to come to Canada back in 2009 when we got married. And it wasn't happening. So we'd gotten to the point where we thought, I guess we're just never going to have kids. And so that's okay. Like we can make our peace with this. And then I got a message from someone that was like, no, you just haven't discovered your gift yet. Then I discovered my gift. 3 months later, I fell pregnant naturally
Wow.
after many miscarriages and a whole lot of trying. And then we were like, oh my gosh, like now we might need to get to Canada. And we'd been delaying the application process somewhat because we didn't know if we were going to do it if we didn't have children. And now we were like, now we're going to have to go. And now I'm pregnant. And it's like, okay. So moving countries with a brand new, in fact, I had her here. So no support, no friends, didn't know anyone.
Mm.
And that I can tell you is the biggest ego death of all because it's
Yeah.
everyone you know, everyone that loves you, that, makes you feel like, yeah, they know I'm a good person, right? They know my history, they know who I am. Now suddenly you're this stranger that nobody knows because they don't have any history on you, right? That was tough. Gosh,
Wow.
that was tough. I can honestly say, on the surface, it doesn't sound like it should be as hard as it is. But it felt like everyone in my life who mattered died. That's
Yeah.
what it felt like because their world carries on and your world carries on and you can't be together, right?
Yep.
And and so I do think like from a spiritual leaning into the growth, leaning into like my divine connection, I had to lean on that massively because that was all I had,
Yeah.
right?
I
Yeah.
I'm with you. I had
Mm.
my own major ego death last year, and if it wasn't for my connection, like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see why people might not cope well and might be tempted to go back home or whatever the case is, right?
Yeah.
But there's no doubt in my mind that so much of like getting to truly understand me
Mhm.
and the depths of myself, like my moods, my thinking, it was revealing.
Well,
Yeah.
'cause right there, you have nowhere to run, you have nowhere to hide. It's you versus you, and
Yeah.
now you have a baby like that, and you're alone.
You're alone.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's
That's a lot.
that's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I feel like light workers are meant to be spread out because a lot of light workers don't necessarily have like physical people in their life that are right here close. They're like
Mhm.
you have these connections that are across the country or across the province, but you're so close to that, but like physically there's such a gap.
Yes. And I would say like if they were in Ontario, then it would be a little bit easier time-wise. But like South Africa is 8 or 9 hours time difference,
Yeah.
which means by the time I'm finished my work day, if I wanted to try and call anybody, it's like they're in bed, which has also made it hard to stay in touch. But just like you said, Krystle, I feel like there is a reason. I feel like the universe absolutely says to those of us who are meant to be bringing light, like this is how we keep you from being so dependent on people
Mhm.
that you don't do the deeper work because we need you to do the deeper work because the planet needs that.
Yeah.
But I see it, I agree with you. I see it with everybody that I've met where there is this like big work that they're doing, that
Yeah.
there is this like aloneness in a physical sense that they have to work through.
Yeah, and even like if you don't physically move, like I walked through a divorce
Yeah,
and all our mutual family friends, it was like all of that just faded away.
it's so tough
It
because
and
it's like
it's
that whole phase is now gone.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it feels like it's the new beginning that we talked about on our last podcast. It's like the new beginning, and then there's like the integration period, which is even almost more uncomfortable than the point of change because, like you
Yes.
said, now you have to face the mirror because
Yes.
it's you versus you, like Morgan said. It's like that's when things get really real.
But you can't blame it on anybody,
No,
right? And I think
no.
that, I mean, I'm sure you went through this too, because I think the process is the same of just going, well, now that I don't have my friends or the marriage or whatever it is, whether it's a job or who am I and who
Yeah,
do I want to be?
Yep.
And so you brought into that conscious choice, right? Like, okay, now we really get to become a creator. of who we want to be.
Yeah.
And I think that that's when I remembered reading a book, and there was this description where they said, if you can picture that your story of your life has been written up until now, but now that you're becoming conscious, you're being given the pen and you're being asked, what is your story going to be like? Is it,
Hmm.
and I really sat with that. I can actually remember the evening. I was sitting in the bath, had my bath salts in and candles, and it was like, if my life was a story, it's pretty boring right now. And I'm not
Yeah.
doing anything exciting with it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I need to do something more exciting with it. So I mean, one of the things that I realized was I wanted more joy. I was not experiencing enough fun and laughter and joy. But I was like, if I'm the lead character in a book, I need to do some rock star things. Like, I need to not be sitting here just like stagnating, but actually growing and evolving and maybe being a bit adventurous and a bit daring and brave and stretching myself and making every day count. And I really think that that was such an important realization for me,
Yeah.
because that thinking often comes back to me now of like, okay, what's next? In this chapter, like, what
Yeah.
do we want to create? And if you think about your story, Krystle, it's like even those painful things you go through, it certainly makes for an interesting journey,
Yeah. So
right?
true.
You look at
Hmm.
your story and you're like, you know what? If the hero of the story had it easy the whole time, well, she grew up and it was all perfect and her parents loved her and her
Yeah.
husband loved her and they lived happily ever after, you'd be like, yeah, boring book,
Yeah.
right? But it's almost like the universe gives us these struggles because that's what builds us, that's what makes us. And when we realize the gift of, you probably wouldn't have the self-awareness, the compassion, the empowerment within yourself that you had to access through that difficulty if you hadn't gone through it.
So
I'm
true.
writing I wrote a book and I'm in the process of the editing process right now. And my editor was like, we need you to provide like, I wanted to inject personal stories into the, so I
Yes.
channeled a book last year, questions on self-discovery. So this whole thing just came pouring out of me after an energy healing session. And I just wrote that last night as a personal story of like, explaining to people reading, like, if you don't go through your pain, like, if I didn't go through all of this stuff up until this moment, I wouldn't have this book to channel through me because I wouldn't have had the channel available, right? Like all the suffering, all the pain, the
Mm,
alchemy, the wisdom that I've integrated, I now can provide this channeled book with all of these examples. But without all of it and without the integration, I wouldn't have the correct resume for the book to be channeled through. And there was more
mm,
channeling last night. It's like, I was like, okay, here we go. And
Mhm.
it's coming through. And I was just like, wow, like it's like you need the resume to be provided with the gifts. You need to have the resume in order to get the job. And the job are these gifts that the universe gives us. And I was just like, okay, I can make pain digestible now, kinda, at
yes,
least with that understanding.
Yeah.
yes. It's that quote of Rumi's that is, the wounds are where we let the light in.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I often refer to being broken open.
Yeah.
And I love the imagery of like a little chick in an eggshell.
Yeah.
And I say to people, a chick has to grow to a certain point that that eggshell becomes uncomfortable and unpleasant to motivate it to peck out of the shell. And
Mhm.
yet what they've shown is, whether it's a butterfly in a chrysalis or a chick in an eggshell, if you had to go and break that egg open, the chick doesn't survive.
Right.
The butterfly doesn't survive because it is through that endeavoring and that pecking that they strengthen themselves to survive on the outside. And that's true for us too. And I think we go through that multiple times in our lives, right? But that's where the pain pushes until the vision pulls. Like, I know I want to get out of this egg, sometimes is the motivating factor. And sometimes I'm so uncomfortable with where I'm at that I know I can't live like this anymore. But whatever that motivation is, that pain is necessary to push the human part of us
Hmm.
that doesn't like change, that doesn't want to do the work, right? Human nature is we want it instant and easy. And it's okay to acknowledge that. That is our human self, but the soul is here to grow.
Yeah.
And so very often they're like in direct opposition of each other. Soul wants to grow and is willing to do the work because it sees the bigger picture. The personality is like, really? More of this? I don't want this.
I don't want to do this again. It's
Not
interesting
again.
too, because when you look at it from the other side, like once you've moved through it, you're like, that wasn't that bad, but it felt like hell.
Yes. Yes.
Like it wasn't really that bad.
Yeah.
And Krystle and I have also, I don't know if you can, I'm sure you can resonate with this. Once you raise your frequency and you've experienced a wider range of frequencies, when it drops, you're like, I am dying. I'm dying. When the average person who has never
Yeah.
raised the frequency is always here and then drop,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem that bad. But when you're up here and you go to here, it's like my whole life's over. And really, it's not. I wonder,
No.
Alex, do you experience that?
You know what? I've experienced drops in energy. Absolutely. I think we all do. And I have moments, but one of my sort of secrets that is actually how I came about like the title of soul alignment coach was I had my spiritual mentor and then I found like a mindset transformational coach. And what I noticed was having the weekly reminders with her, having the weekly injection of wisdom, of refocusing, of realigning, hence my word. I found that there's only so far I can fall within a week.
Mhm.
And it keeps me on track. Like if I feel like I'm starting to go down,
Hmm.
it it's amazing how it pulls me back in time. And I'm usually feeling armed so that when that happens, I'm like, I'm going to try A, I'm going to try B, I'm going to try
Yeah.
C, I'm going to try D. And I've definitely in that time had one occasion where I was like, whoa, I tried to meditate, couldn't connect. Try to journal, couldn't do that. Listen to music, eventually found the right song. That started to shift me enough that I could journal and then I could meditate. So it was a long process that morning. Thank goodness the universe gave me the grace to have the time that morning because that would not always be
Hmm.
the case. But it was work, but because it was top of mind, and that's also the benefit of those frequent reminders, I was able to get through it. And so that's what actually birthed me now. I have an online support program that's every Sunday. We meet for a wisdom session. We do a monthly oracle reading. We do coaching, like where people can get support for whatever they need. And um, and then at the end of the month, we do like a reflect and goal setting for the following month, where it's like, okay, what worked this month? What
Mm.
was not going well? Um, and it's just amazing because it creates this container for thriving that honestly, if you are finding that for yourselves, I strongly recommend a container
Mhm.
with whomever that is that feels right for you. But I know that the difference for me has been astounding.
Mhm.
I had an oracle card deck that I had been working on and restarting and restarting and restarting for like 5 years. Okay. And when I finally joined this program, there was this accountability and this staying on track, so my momentum could keep building instead of moving forward and then back and then forward and then back. Last year, I ended up writing, I finished my adult oracle card deck. I did a children's motivational deck, and I did a children's book with 21 short stories in it. I did a sacred intentions deck as well, all in the same year while I'm working with two children. Um, and I know why. And it's because of the container.
Mhm.
Right.
And I just think that as spiritual people, because we're sensitive, we feel things so deeply.
Mhm.
We do. And so, life is not a flat line for us. And it's just accepting that as part of who we are and going, it's
Yeah.
okay that maybe I need a little bit more support than the average person,
Mhm.
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Because we don't just, we feel things like you were talking about that range. We
Mhm.
feel things so much more intensely that I almost feel like the kind thing to do for ourselves is to say, I'm going to protect you and put you in a container where you're held
Mhm.
so that it's not it's not too far a climb each week to get yourself into the zone.
That's beautiful.
Laura,
Mm.
I would love if you would share, how do you use your channel when it comes to your mediumship? Are you
Mhm.
like, how did you get I guess it was through maybe perhaps your therapist who turned into your spiritual mentor, but where did you get the guidance to know, like, okay, I'm going to bed now. This needs to stop so that I can sleep. You can't come in now. Like, do you consciously open your container, like your channel? I mean, like, if you could just explain to everyone, like, what does that look like? Give us like
So
the back, like, a back seat into your life.
so my mentor was amazing because she really did mentor me for a while. And so we studied things like symbolism and ancient philosophies and religions and whatever. So she definitely helped me with that. And to be honest, in the beginning, I had to learn the hard way
Mm.
that there are certain things that are important. And I'm going to call them energetic boundaries are
Mhm.
important because there were a few sessions I did where I channeled people where the energies were not maybe amazing. And I really struggled energetically to get them out of my space afterwards. So, she taught me a variety of tools and methodologies to keep my boundaries. But I think whichever methodology you use, it's the same as having boundaries with people.
Yeah.
And those of us who are sensitive people tend to struggle with boundaries the most because, we're so empathic that we're thinking of everybody else sometimes too much and not considering ourselves. But I say to people, just because someone's knocking on your front door doesn't mean you need to let them in.
Hmm.
And so when it comes to my channeling, I am very much when I want to tune in, I visualize opening up my portal and allowing. And when I'm not, I shut it down.
Yeah.
So I like to live that way because I feel that spiritually we are here to be human on this earth. And like I said, I learned the hard way. When I was channeling and everything was open all the time, I started getting really ungrounded. And
Right.
it became more and more difficult to be human on this earth. And so I realized it was necessary. And yes, there will be times where they bug you because something's really important and you have the opportunity and the right to scan or sense what this frequency feels like. Is this something I'm willing to entertain? And you get to choose, right? I mean, I've had times where I've gone with my husband to like a work event and someone's been standing next to me and their mother has been like, please tell her something. And I remember, I mean, this was many years ago, but I remember like turning to her and saying, I'm sorry to like say this, but did you lose your mom? And of course, this is now someone who I haven't even introduced myself to. She looks at me and she's like, yes. And I'm like, I can't remember what the message was, but it was something. And she just was like, and walked away. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, you know, good lesson, good lesson. And something that my mentor taught me that I thought was such a brilliant description. She said, look, if you're a hairdresser, you don't walk up to people in the mall and start cutting their hair.
Yeah,
So
so
we need
true.
to know that there are boundaries as a channel and a medium, and we have a responsibility to respect them. So if someone's not asking you to channel for them, be aware of that. And so, I'm very intuitive. I obviously pick up so much when clients come in to the room. I sense a lot, but in an appointment with someone, I allow myself to sense because by means of them booking to see me, I know that they've chosen that.
Mhm.
Right.
When I go out into the world and I'm just trying to like meet new people, I try not to read them. I try as much as possible to, yes, I can sense energies, but I try and respect their boundaries there.
Right.
So when
Yeah.
you feel them spirit knocking on the door, you just go, it's not appropriate right now. Like not now. And they can be there, but it doesn't mean I need to pay attention to them. And so it's kind of like being in a coffee shop where other people are having a conversation. They can be there, but it doesn't mean you have to listen into the conversation.
Right. Yeah.
How
Um,
do you find it really like, I mean, what has been your experience with your boundaries there? Have you struggled with that?
um, it just all came flooding in. And so
Right.
like
Yes.
I was like laying down on Christmas Eve and this woman came through and I was like this is exciting because like
Yes.
I was a medium as a child and then I it was closed because of everything my life path I had chosen. And so
Yes.
here it is back online and I'm like this is great except the woman that came through had really dense energy. And I was like, oh
Yeah.
God. So she's showing me her life with her husband that she needs to go, that she's still in I guess she needed to go to the light, like she was still struggling and her husband had gone. And I had like immense detail. Like I'm like on Google, I found this woman, I found
Yeah.
the obituary. I was like, this is so cool. But then I was like, then the next day, I was not well. And I'm like, okay, like this. And then it was somebody else. I was walking in the forest and then I'm meditating and then there's another soul. And I'm like, okay, this is wonderful, but we gotta place like a no filter. And when I choose to, now I can just tune in. Now, I wouldn't say I haven't developed my gifts fully, like, but all I have to do is sit and decide, right? My
Yes.
partner's mother just passed, and at her funeral, I'm like, your mother is here. And then after the funeral, she was showing me some images and I was telling him about them, which was okay with me, right? Because that's okay. But I don't think I still have the greatest tools of clearing. And that worries me because I'll pull in and then I get things stuck on me. And then I'm like, okay, we need to remove all this energy and I have to have a ceremony. And so I haven't done a good job yet of like fine tuning.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that's super powerful, and we underestimate the power of it, is setting an intention. So before I see clients where I'm in a channel, what I do is I will say, sorry, I don't these reminders. I will say, beings of light are allowed, and only beings that are here in love and for the highest good
Mm.
of this soul.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And I'm very clear on that. Like I am not interested in entertaining dark energies. They are not allowed.
Mhm.
And I will also say a prayer because we don't have to be religious to say a prayer.
Yep.
Divine all knowing, please work through me and despite me. And wherever I am right now, just work through me and let me be the conduit for their highest good.
Mhm.
My
And
hair sounds very similar. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
and I think that's beautiful and it works. We do have to be we have to be disciplined in doing it. And like I say, I didn't do it in the beginning and like I experienced the yuck afterwards. So I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about. One of the things afterwards that you can do is obviously if you've got black onyx, tiger's eye, um, pretty much any black stones absorb negative energy. They need to be cleaned. So if you, yeah. So make sure if you're wearing it all the time, make sure that you're cleaning it often so that it's got the capacity to continue to absorb. Yeah, that's important, right? Because they get full energetically and then you
Ah,
need to release. The other thing is a good old-fashioned shower.
Mhm.
Water is incredibly cleansing. And if you can cleanse from the top of your head down and energetically, you're allowing that to clear your aura of anything that is stuck to you. It is amazing, but you need to go head under.
okay.
So try that and see how that works. But I think that when you set that intention up beforehand and you've already got that protective bubble, I haven't actually experienced any of the lagging energies when I do that properly. So yeah, just stick with that and trust that you are the authority of your energetic field, and 100% we get to say who's allowed in, and
Mhm.
that immense download I completely relate because mine was like that as well. And so it can be overwhelming in the beginning where you just think, oh, this is a bit much. But the great thing is that you do get better and better at just allowing, and then when it doesn't feel appropriate and you need to focus on work or whatever, you can tune out.
Laura, could you just share with us, like, how do you work with clients? How can people find you? How do you serve people?
Yeah, so I offer a variety of things. Obviously, mediumship is one of them. So for lost loved ones, whether it's animals or people. And then I offer my support group, which is once a week. It's a group, so it's a collective tribe of beautiful people. And I also offer holistic therapy. So I'm a registered therapist. Um, and my holistic therapy and soul alignment coaching, they're different in that when you're doing specifically counseling, it's holding space for people when they're in the trauma.
Mhm.
But coaching is more, how do we get out? What are the tools? How do we want to progress moving forward? And I'm so passionate about that because I love seeing people's light switch on where they
Mm.
realize, like, okay, my life can feel different. I can experience this differently. So all of my services are available on my website, which is www.inspiredsoulsessions.com. And I offer retreats and workshops too. And funnily enough, my next workshop, I don't know if this will be released before, but is the 27th of June in Pritis. And it's about connecting with your intuition and how to assess the
Mm.
difference between our fear, our triggers, and our knowing,
Yeah.
because they're
Love
different.
that.
Yeah, this will be out before.
Okay, amazing. And then I've got a women's retreat happening in October at the Pomeroy Kananaskis Mountain Lodge that is going to be stunning. An immersive experience of inspiration, of wisdom, of learning, of relaxation, of connection, of alignment. And that's on my website too. I know that it's going to be the kind of weekend. My intention that I'm setting for it is that women will leave feeling like they've made memories for a lifetime. They've built connections that are deep and meaningful. Because I do believe, for those of us that are deeper human beings, we really do thrive when we have a tribe. When
Yeah.
we've got people who get us, that we can share honestly with and who are authentic. Because I don't know about you guys, but I feel like there's just so few like of that caliber of person in everyday life that we get to connect with. So
Mm.
that's my hope for that weekend. And truly my desire in serving people is always just to help them discover the very best of themselves, the highest expression of their spirit, and why they're here to achieve whatever it is their soul has come to earth to do. Because
Love
each of
that.
us has something
Mhm.
unique that we're meant to offer, and it matters.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Thank
Laura,
you, guys.
so much. This has been such a beautiful
Uh,
conversation, and we will link all of your links below in the show notes so that people can find you and find your services and your retreat. And yeah, just thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It was such a joy meeting both of you. I really hope to connect again
Yes.
in whatever way. So thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies. I'm sending you lots of love from Calgary.